Hi, my name is Harris. I'm one of your podcast hosts. I'm also a lawyer at Treadstone Law. For most Canadians, buying, selling, or refinancing real estate, a lawyer is the last thing on their mind. That's unfortunate because lawyers play a vital role in the process. But what choices do Canadians have? Lawyers can be very expensive. Well, Treadstone Law offers resources to Canadians so they have access to the information they need. Whether you sign up for a live workshop or a mailing list, we cover topics to help you make informed decisions and avoid costly mistakes. It's advice you can start using today, and best of all, it's free. Visit treadstonelaw.ca/MAS offer or click the link below to get access right now. If you're looking to retain Treadstone Law, it's never been easier. Our entire process is online. From completing the retainer agreement to your signing appointment, everything is done from the comfort of your own home. We're your digital lawyers. The best part of it is that you don't pay anything when you're retaining our firm. Visit treadstonelaw.ca/MAS offer or click on the link below to retain us right now. Enjoy the podcast. Welcome to another podcast. Welcome to another episode of Hustle and Grit. Today on my podcast, we have Fariba Afzali. Fariba is a mortgage agent with Mortgage Edge. Her mission is to offer you mortgage products that are tailored to your need based on a review of your spending habits and your financial priorities. She provides solutions that seek to avoid unsustainable debt financing and that allow you to fulfill your financial needs and goals. Welcome to the podcast, Fariba.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's awesome to have you. I went through your LinkedIn. I've seen that you're like a veteran in the mortgage industry. You work for a big bank. You work for mortgage brokerages. Why don't you kind of run down for the listeners quickly what got you into mortgage brokering? What was it that made you kind of enter the industry?
I'm coming from self-employed business background, and always in the process of decision making when it comes to the investment, that I have been always involved. And I'm coming from the time that it was a conventional printing. You had to invest in the big machinery, and then the technology changed and brought it to completely the digitalization. But because I have realized that the investment is always, whatever we do every day, we are investing in something, whether it's emotional or whether it's the finance. Then I was drawn to mortgage because investment in a residential or any purchasing of real estate, it serves so many purposes at the same time. And you do not have to have a professional operator to operate your investment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's like one of the first times I've heard it that way, where you're looking at it from, it's more of a capital outlay as opposed to just buying a house. And I feel like a lot of people do get emotional when they're buying a house or getting a mortgage. And this is why I always advise to get professionals who know what they're doing and understand what the purpose of a mortgage is, other than just buying a house and having a place to live in. There's a lot of other things that kind of factor into financing where you're living and your overall wealth accumulation. So having said that, give me a rundown as to what it's like working with you. If any of our listeners want to get a mortgage from Fariba, are they going to call? Do they email? What's kind of the process that of the entire kind of journey of getting a mortgage with you?
Because as I said, it's an investment, which also emotionally, as you mentioned, that people, they just go and buy. And yes, you live in your investment, the same time, your emotional engagement with your investment. But behind that, you need to have some information. And how people they can, I mean, they reach me or they can reach me, it's by phone, by email, and
Mm-hmm.
especially when they are in process of making that decision, that big move. They are working with their realtors and they want to know what the budget is. So it is something that really I always say before you go, because sometimes you see something beautiful and all of a sudden, oh, I want that. But have you been prepared for it? Have you have checked with somebody what you need to be
Mm-hmm.
approved? And this is the information that I always give. It doesn't matter that it has to be done right away, but I always advise it's not a bad idea because you never know. You say, oh, I'm not ready now. But in 3 months, an okay, opportunity comes there, and you want to close the deal. But because you are coming at the last moment, check this mortgage agent or that mortgage agent, then you're losing the deal. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
information is really my mission.
I mean that's what I find like if you don't have your kind of ducks in a row, for lack of a better way of explaining it, and you're doing it last minute after, for example, you put in an offer, you're not in a good position. You're gonna end up taking products that you could have avoided, but you have to now because you didn't kind of do your homework ahead of time. Um,
Exactly.
so so what do you say? Like, how quickly should somebody be reaching out to you? If I'm planning on buying a house in the next 3 months, should I be reaching out once I get a realtor? Should I be reaching out? Like, what's the earliest time that I can reach out to you for this information? Sitting down, and I'm assuming going through the finances, understanding what kind of budget I can have.
As you know, a lot of realtors also ask you usually, what
Mm-hmm.
is the budget? What is your purchase that you are accepted or approved for that? So it's better always if you have a plan to purchase something. Yeah, exactly. 3 months before, and then after you have contacted, all the numbers are there, all the information have been exchanged. Then you contact the realtor. Okay, this is my budget, and this is what I can afford, because it's not about at this moment. A lot of people, as you know, they started to buy the big, going to the big house and the higher mortgage
Yeah.
amount where the interest rate was low. But you have always to consider, if the market changes, am I still able to afford that mortgage? So
Yeah.
these are the information. It is between the mortgage agent, mortgage advisor, and the client.
Yeah.
Because now, because of the interest that has been um, uh, increased,
Yeah.
when the appraisal goes and do the appraisal, they come back that say, okay, you have signed the offer for 950,000, but in reality, at this market now, it is about 870.
Yeah. 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 No. No. And uh, that's a huge issue. And this is why I kind of like. I mean, for myself and for you, perhaps it's common sense that you'd go to the mortgage broker first. And that's all what I always advise anybody coming to me. But I like to hammer it home for my listeners, just because it's unbelievable how many times people will still kind of jump into the realtor side, throw in an offer, and then decide to do everything. And then you have a lot of issues where you're getting into a lot of debt that could potentially be unsustainable, or it's very stressful, because it's like, I mean, if you know what you're getting into, you are more prepared for it. Whereas if you're planning everything last minute and you have to take out, for example, a private mortgage or anything like that, for the example that you've just talked about, it gets very stressful. And it's not happy. The dream that you're having to get a home turns into a nightmare.
Exactly. And I always say, look, after everything is finalized, everybody goes there, I go. I'm there
Yeah.
always to answer the question and even after the
Yeah.
closing. But who is going to pay? the monthly payment, the weekly payment.
Yeah.
And the home should
Yeah.
be something that embrace you when you come, not to say, oh, what am I going to keep it or
Yeah.
not? And
Yeah.
always, no matter what the interest rate goes higher or the market value drops, if it is a place that you are living and you can manage, you have a good financial management, I always say you can do it as long as you know your limits.
Yeah, yeah, and it's getting to the right professionals to understand what those limits are. Now, I wanted to change gears a little bit because I've conducted so many podcasts, but there's one topic that I've never really touched, and that's what we wanted to speak to you about today, which is the newcomers plan and all the mortgages associated with it, because I feel like, first of all, Canada has a lot of newcomers. We there's a lot of immigration coming in, but I don't necessarily think we have the best resources helping newcomers in getting mortgages and informing them what they need to do in order to kind of get into a house or just start their starter home and kind of progress and understand what kind of financial products there are. Because frankly speaking, and I don't mean to drag my monologue here for too long, even myself, as a lawyer working within the industry, there's so many financial products out there now that I can't keep track of. And I need somebody to sit down and talk to about what's going on, because there used to be a time where a mortgage was a mortgage. Now, a mortgage depends on a million different other things. And based on how you answer those questions, you're going to get a specific product that's best for you. And so, if it's intimidating for me, I can only imagine what it's like for newcomers to be in this like sea of information. And mortgages is not the only thing that they're looking at. They're looking at so many other things as they come in, to kind of understand what their path is to home ownership or anything else. So can you give me a rundown, and let's just start it off with, because this is a huge topic.
Okay.
Let's perhaps start it off with, before we kind of get into the products for newcomers. Why don't you kind of run through, in your experience, what are some of the biggest mistakes newcomers make in terms of dealing with mortgages, or their relationship, or information seeking, or the decisions that they make when it comes to this?
The biggest mistake, everybody who arrives, they rely on friends or family experiences.
Mm,
That's every individual is different. That I always say. For instance, some they say, "Oh, okay, you have just example. You have found a place that the landlord tells you gives you $100 or $200 less, and you can rent it. But the landlord doesn't want you pay by check or it comes from your bank." And you think, okay, I'm saving
mm,
money. But no, because as a newcomer, when there is no history of credit, no history at all, so you need to
mm,
start to build a history for yourself. So what happens that when you pay, you have a lease agreement. You pay by check. This check is withdrawn from your bank account. And for instance, after 6 months, when we are looking at the bank statement, oh, okay, that individual has been able to pay it on time. You see? The other thing
yeah.
is that if you go to work, first of all, there has to be 3 months of work experience, okay? And you are here
Mm-hmm.
mostly as a work visa or you're coming. So the history of revenue, that is very important. And
Yeah.
if because I have seen people, they come, they get the money, but they don't keep it in the bank, or the employer has said, okay, I pay you like this, the rest you will receive it later. No, everything should be legitimate, everything should be noted and documented. These are very
Yeah.
important. And then you can also start to invest and put money aside in RRSP, you are allowed to do it because then you can use that
Mm-hmm.
RRSP as a down payment. Because the three insurer, mortgage default insurer, CMHC, Sagan, and Canada Guarantee,
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to have 20% down payment. Even the lowest interest rate is offered to the high insured, which it is with 5% or 10% or 15% down payment. Even you save on interest rate because that is the best because the lenders, they know the mortgage is insured.
Yeah, yeah.
So for that, the other thing that I have to add is that, okay, husband and wife, they arrive. And what happened? The husband opens a bank account and they request for a credit card. And they say, okay, all the family, they can use the same bank account and the same credit card. But wife who is working or vice versa, if the husband is working and the bank account
Yeah.
is the spouse's name, they are not creating a credit history. So what is the best when you are arriving? Both family member who are working, who are thinking to purchase a home, they are starting to create a credit history. Very easy. You can even sometimes go and have a prepaid credit card. You pay $1,000
Yeah,
and then you have your credit card you build, or you go and lease the vehicle. And also that's, you do not need to go to ask a lot of credit card. This is not good.
yeah,
So
yeah,
a lot of things happen that in 1 month 4 or 5 credit requests has been applied, which is not good.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
every credit history, every credit request needs to have your consent.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, you've said a lot, and I got to unpack some of this stuff because some of this stuff you think is common sense, but even I've never heard of this, and but it seems like it's on point. Where, for example, what you started off with, even spending the landlord saying pay cash, right, not to check or anything else, and I'll give you $100 off. And for newcomers, that seems like it's a good deal because you're saving $100. But in the long run, it's going to cost you because you're not going to be able to get that mortgage or whatever it is at the rate that you wanted or however you would, and it'll cost you more than you saved by spending in cash. But I'm assuming, based on kind of what you're saying, a lot of the people that are kind of immigrating don't understand the concept of a credit history because maybe perhaps where they're coming from, credit markets aren't as deep and mortgages aren't as available. And a lot of the transactions are done through cash as opposed to checks or anything else. And so they feel like when they come here, obviously the other person's going to ask for cash because that's how they were doing it back home, but they have to change their habits.
Exactly. And I have always said, here, when we are in Canada, credit is access to the money.
Hmm.
So it's not that we're afraid. I am not saying we have to go and to use all the credit. No,
Mm-hmm.
always I say 30% of your credit. Don't max it out
Yeah.
because too much debt also system with borrowing, wise borrowing, call that, actually you accumulate more and save more.
Yeah.
So this is the mentality also to to be careful. And there are a family member has come and started the way of living completely different. And if you have a good job or you are going to have a good employment, please make everything clear, because sometimes if the credit history is not yet built, you have just arrived 1 year and you are in permanent resident status, you have that,
Yeah.
but the credit history is not built. That 1 year of rent payment or phone payment, which is reflected in the bank statement, That is a type of credit history.
Yeah. So it could go a long way just having even paying the phone bill on time every month for a year.
Exactly, in two, three, simple things. And as I said, if you don't want to go over, credit, you are not still comfortable with how to use the credit, you can have the prepaid credit card, which
Yeah.
also, and as you can start to have the saving and also the RSP contribution, which is very good. You feel your income taxes. These are the
Yeah.
steps that needed to be done. And as I said, also, husband and wife, if they are working, both of them, they need to start to create their own credit history.
Yeah. And I also feel with newcomers, I mean, you're given a wealth of information here, and I'm sure you're just touching the tip of the iceberg here. And again, if anybody's watching, they want to contact Fariba, I'm gonna leave her contact information below because all of this is very valuable information. One of the things that I do find with newcomers, and rightfully so, they're coming into a different country and they're scared of who to trust, who not to trust. That's why they kind of stick to family, and sometimes it also leads them to trust like the bigger banks, right? Like whatever the bigger banks are, I'm not going to name any. I mean, I love the banks. I don't have anything against the banks. At the end, they're the ones who are going to give you a mortgage. But just because how the banks are set up, they're not in a situation to help you understand what you need to do for them to give you that mortgage, right? They will evaluate, like, for example, what you just said, the bank statements and all of that, but nobody will be able to sit down and say, hey, this is what you need to do and plan it out, which is why I always advise going to brokers like yourself and kind of sitting down and saying, okay, what do I need to do? Kind of, this is what my strategy is. I'd like to buy a house in the next 6 months, a year, and this is what I'm doing. What do I need to change? How do I need to change my, not necessarily spending habits, but the method of spending or the
Exactly.
mode of spending, correct?
Exactly. And also, what you mentioned, it is a lot of people they say, okay, I'm going to go with the bank. But when you are, I was working at the bank, and
Yeah.
the product sometimes, if there are certain needs, might not be available.
Yeah.
But when I'm working as a mortgage agent with the, mortgage brokerage, I have access to different lenders. And the non-A bank lenders, sometimes they
Yeah.
are more competitive when it comes to interest rate and flexibility as well.
Yeah.
These are
Yeah.
very important and they are regulated by the government. One of the proof is when somebody wants to buy a purchase place with 5 or 10% down payment, the mortgage companies that we are working, of course, we work with the bank as well, but the mortgage companies, they have been accepted by CMHC, Sagan, and Canada
Mm.
Guarantee as well. So this is the proof. Not only they are not losing their money, not only that it's a reliable source, they are also saving money when it comes to interest rate. And the
Yeah.
other thing, as a mortgage agent, when we sit with the clients, and I always explain what is the benefit if you take that type of rate, what is the benefit if you take this amortization, or how you save. It's all about saving at the end.
Yeah.
And this is we spend more time, I should say that. And it's not that only imagine when you go to one shop to buy something, or
Yeah.
when you go to the mall, you have different option. I always say it's not only that shop that you need to go, it
Yeah.
is also other shops that you can compare the prices.
Yeah, that's a wonderful analogy. I've never heard it before, but it is like going to the mall. But I'd add something else to that. Whereas the bank is you're just going to one store. With the mortgage broker, you're going to the mall, but you're going with the person who tells you, okay, this is where you can find this, and this is where you can find that, and so you almost have assistance, and you know what to look for where.
Exactly. We are a shopping assistant in the reality, but for the rate. And there is no, we are not 9 to 5. Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wake up at 6 o'clock because there is a deal, or
Yeah.
the night before the purchase offer is come, and I continue to answer the phone till 10 and 11. So these are something that I always say we are excited the same amount that the buyers are excited, and it's our name. For instance, it
Yeah.
is Fariba Afzali's name that I
Yeah.
have to make sure everybody has a trust working,
Yeah.
and that's why it's my job to give information. I always say, don't hesitate. Please call me. It doesn't mean you are going to be, engaged right away in signing. No, nothing.
Yeah.
It is just to go over your needs, over what you want to know, and be realistic. I always say it's easy. Some people say, "Oh, okay, go to buy this." No, and
Yeah.
sometimes I say to the client, "You want to stay within the okay, A lender, we call them the bank or mortgage companies, the A lenders.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have different, the one that are alternative lender. And my goal is always to keep the client with the A lenders. But sometimes the clients are ready, they see the investment is very good and they know it has to be done. Then they ask me, okay, whom do you prefer? Which lenders now we should go? So it's
Yeah.
always the engagement and communication that's very important that
Yeah, I mean,
we
the A
conduct.
lender. Yeah, sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just like one thing that I mean you just said spoke about, which really kind of strikes something in me is the fact that there is a kind of infatuation, I would almost say, with the A lenders, and the A lenders are great, and I've got no issues with them, but that it doesn't mean that you're going to save the most with the A lenders just because their interest rate is lower. If you're self-employed, if you have different types of income, do you really want to declare more income so you can save a few dollars on your payments? Like, does that make sense, right? And these are the type of issues that Canadians are facing. And I'm assuming that when you're a newcomer, you're not only figuring out how to prepare and make your payments, but and develop that credit history. Then you have to kind of jump into an understanding that every single like all interest rates are not the same. A lower interest rate could actually cost you more in the long run, and you got to figure out where everything kind of lands, for a better
Exactly.
word.
But when we talk about the A lenders, because most people they think the A lenders are only the banks, okay?
Yeah.
And then the A lenders, one of the advantages is that you can purchase a place with less than 20% down payment, which
Yeah.
then the mortgage insurance default it comes. But B lenders, we call them the B lenders, which are very good for self-employed people. As you
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
not declaring the income because of the expenses of the businesses as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then when they come to the B lender, then it is a good option. And so we work with different lenders and based on the situation, because some people they have their first mortgages and they need another mortgage to improve for the renovation, the home
Yeah.
improvement. So when they go for a second mortgage, and we have that option as well for the choose the second mortgage, the lender for it, and again among them we go and compare the prices. You
Yeah.
see, the
Yeah.
level we work is always like that. Okay, the A lender, which one are the best?
Yeah.
Or the B lender, even which one are the, we go and negotiate with them. And then we have that, they call it private lender also. But as
Yeah.
I said, especially for the newcomer, they have the opportunity to have with lower down payment. It's just that how they build their history of work,
Mm.
employment, and credit. Those are the very important thing. And also, one thing is very important: when they bring money with them, they better keep it at the bank.
Yeah.
Sometimes they lend it to a family member, or no, please keep the money, because when you are buying it, that is needed to be, shown that it was in your bank account. It's
Yeah.
not something all of a sudden 30 days before closing or 30 days before approval, the money appears there, which is your own money. But it's better to keep it. These are small things that I am bringing attention to it because I have seen it.
Yeah.
That creates a problem.
And there's tons of these small things that then just add up to just too many things that you're getting a hard time getting a mortgage. But switching gears again, I want to move from preparation to products. And I'm not the most sophisticated in understanding what products newcomers have. So could you give our listeners a little bit about what it is? Do newcomers have mortgages specifically catered to them, or is it basically the same mortgage every other Canadian's getting? What's the difference if there is a specific mortgage? Like what's the difference between a newcomer mortgage versus a plain old Canadian mortgage, for lack of better
Actually,
way of
in
saying
the
it?
reality, there is not.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, preparation is different.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a newcomer, actually, they fall under the first time home buyer. It's the same procedure that a Canadian who has lived here 15 years and then they decide to purchase a place. It's the same thing. The mortgage product that is offered to the newcomer is the same to the first time home buyer.
Okay.
So they can use their RSP if they have invested. It's the same thing for the first time home buyer who have lived here all,
Yeah. Yeah.
all their lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the same gifted fund from family member, if they have, is the same thing with the first time home buyer. When it comes to the type of amortization is 25 years, and also the variable rate and the fixed rate, and how they prefer to go with a fixed rate or variable rate.
Yeah.
Actually, is the product is the same thing.
So is this and I know the date of this recording. We're recording it a day before where we anticipate a interest rate hike by the Bank of Canada. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that as well. So we're anticipating a 75 basis point hike, and everybody's kind of very sure that's going to happen. How does that affect newcomers? Is it just going to, like you said, just like any other first-time home buyers, or is this something specific? How does that kind of change, that increasing interest rate environment, affect newcomers as they come into the country?
Is the same. It's the same that is affecting everybody who wants to buy at this moment, and they are taking into the consideration, should I go for it or not? And
Yeah.
my advice is, it doesn't matter when have you been arrived. It's the same kind of investment mentality that it matters,
Yeah.
which that question is for even first time. I mean, it falls under the first time home buyer
Yeah.
for the first time they want to invest the money. Because there is something when you rent and then the money you have saved or you have brought, it stays in the bank. With inflation, it loses its value that it has today. I mean, in 2 years, because people are afraid of, oh, okay, interest rate is going, is high, but it's not something new because we are referring to, pandemic time, and that it was exceptional, the
Yeah.
interest rate. Normally, if we go, I have the information. If somebody is interested, they can contact me, and I can also send them the history of the interest rate, and that
Yeah.
we have had it for 7 point, even 5. I just think. I remember I met a couple, and that they were not a professional employee,
Hmm.
simple work here and there. And they had purchased their home when the interest rate was 13%,
Oh
back
man.
20 something. And still, when I asked them, I said, yes, it was very difficult, but we are happy we invested. because the same, with interest rate that for 5 or 6 years they were paying that high interest rate, still after a certain time they have gained what they had paid. So this shouldn't stop people, because it's a history. Is interest rate, everybody knows it goes high, it comes down, but the value of the money, and I have the calculation also,
Yeah.
rent versus purchase, that, as I said, if anybody is interested, I can also send the calculation and they can send that.
Yeah.
So even if you take 2.5% increase of the real estate in Ontario, which has been always much higher than that, after 5 years, you will be seeing, even if the interest rate goes higher than that, still you are saving money.
Yeah, I think it's a mindset. If you're looking at it, like every day, oh my God, price is going up and down. You're gonna stress yourself out, and it really doesn't do anything. When you're buying a house, you're looking to stay there for some time, 5, 10, 15, whatever amount of years, and during that time, it's always going to benefit you. You're not necessarily you don't have to look at it over a 3 month period and be like, oh my God, I think interest rate went up and I lost a few thousand, because in the long run, you'll always be up. And it's very difficult. As much as we like to daydream about getting the house at the most optimal time, who can predict when it's going to be the lowest price? All
No,
you can do
nobody.
is, yeah. And each time you look at it, you've always, investors or people who are buying homes always come out on top. And that's what that's the only information or data you should be looking at to see how you should be getting in, not necessarily in the next 3 months is it going to drop or not, because you don't know.
Exactly. And then this is something, which investment. I always say exception shouldn't be a rule.
Yeah.
un, this is, it happens
Yeah.
because for a period of time last year everybody was investing in a stock, and everybody was making money. Okay, I buy the house and then I sell it in 3 months higher. That
Yeah.
was exception.
Yeah.
Our lives are not based on exception, is based
Yeah.
on preparation and mental flexibility, I always call it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say for those people who are like, oh my God, house prices you could flip in 3 months and make so much money, that was not a good market to be in. You couldn't go in with any conditions. There was houses, I mean, people were trading them like they were chocolate bars, and some of these houses weren't the best investment, but because there's a craze, you weren't even allowed to look at the house to see if everything was working, if everything was good. So now you have that breathing room to put in a home inspection condition, a financing condition, and buy it the proper way. So now is the proper time, which to me is very funny. How like 6 months ago people are like, "Oh my God, that was the time." I'm like, I mean, no, it was not the time,
No.
because it was crazy. Why are you? Well, there's like a herd mentality. Everybody's doing it, so I got to do it. Whereas now, because everybody's backing out, I got to back out. When in reality, it should be the opposite. When everybody's doing it, you should be holding, and when everybody stops, that now is the time to jump in.
Exactly. And actually, it's the first time home buyers market, if they are going to, because yes, the interest rate is high, but the other way, if you look at it, the
Yeah.
prices is less than when the interest rate. So it is not, I always say, money loves the time. What does it
Yeah.
mean? Investment needs time.
Yeah.
You cannot see in 1 year. And I have always said from my experience, as I was explaining, that when we were purchasing a huge machinery for the printing, we needed somebody also professional to operate it. And then you
Yeah.
needed a bigger space to place that. Whereas the investment in a house, you are living it. You don't need a professional knowledge all the time about,
Yeah.
the maintaining your property, which is your investment. And at the same time, it is growing with you, with your family, and without not that much effort. So, as you said, the wise decision is not based on how you follow others. You
Yeah.
follow your pocket
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how hard you want to keep that investment. And of course, we are living now that we spend a lot. The consumerism, as you know, we
Yeah.
spend a lot. But our parents, they did not have that access to credit as my son has that,
Yeah.
or the
Yeah.
young student they have. But they were managing the big
Yeah.
family. They were managing. So it's all about how you manage your money. At the end, it's not
Yeah.
only about interest rate or the market value. Of course, if you invest in a market of GTA, you will be seeing it more. The revenue and the profit is higher, and based on that you go, okay, why should I pay rent if we are four, and we can go. And there is something else I have to explain also. People, when they want to buy home, they are coming from apartment with 2 bedroom, all of a
Yeah.
sudden they want to go to 4 bedrooms, and I say, just a step by step.
Yeah, I think there's that mindset where your first home has to be like your last home. When your first home is just your starter home, and it's not going to be your last home. You may want to flip after 5 years, and you gradually move into that as you build equity, as you build so many other things. You can move into that, and I see that too, where it's you're going from a place and you want to double it in size, and I'm like, that's a huge jump. It's a
Yeah,
huge
and
jump.
then all of the sudden, the children, they want everything. Everybody gives an idea, an opinion that makes the decision
Yeah.
more difficult. But if you be, it's about how realistic you are going to be.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. And I
Yeah.
always say, when we wanted to leave our country, it didn't happen in 24 hours.
Yeah.
We did our research and we arrived. And it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's home ownership is a journey that you need to take a first step, but not to run. That's a
Yeah.
different mentality,
Yeah.
I believe.
I think the mindset needs to shift from the entitlement mindset that I deserve this house to I got to work for this house and what's the best decision.
Exactly,
So,
exactly. And if you look at the, around the house, a lot of people that they've bought the first home and then the second and the third, they have followed that
yeah.
idea. Is not going to be my last, it's my first, and it's okay if it is lower than expectation that I have now.
Yeah.
So it's loving your budget and following that. That's a kind of a good guidance.
Yeah.
And then the decision making is not that much difficult.
Yeah.
Um,
No, 100%. Yeah, well, you know what? I thank you for coming on the podcast. I wish we had more time to talk about this because there's tons of good information. Again, we went through, talking to you, I've gone through a lot of newcomer information. Anybody who wants to reach out to Fariba, depending on where you're watching this from, I'm going to have her contact information below or on the side. Reach out. It's always preparation is everything. You're going to end up like how good of a position you are 5 years, 10 years down the line depends on how you prepare today. And you need to talk to the right people that will help you prepare the right way to ensure that you have everything and you're set up for success in the long run. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. Any last words, Fariba?
uh, Please call me if you have any question before you just go and dream about the house.
Awesome. Yeah. Call her and yeah, make sure you're on the right track. Thanks again.
Thank you.